All right, I want to share with you what I read this morning before church. I read a true story about a man whose life was one that may have seemed hard, without purpose. A man who couldn't see probably any significant meaning for his existence. He couldn't contribute much within society and pretty much was 100% reliant on others. This man was born blind. And yet today, most every Christian has heard of him. This very man, the story of his life, part of his life, John 9, chapter 9 of Gospel of John, is where this historical account was written. Let me set the stage first. The vibe that was going on at the time, we see in chapter right before that, chapter 8. We see Jesus squaring off with the Pharisees. They're telling Jesus that he was born illegitimately, he was a bastard, basically, and that he was demon-possessed, etc., etc. And Jesus tells them, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day. He saw it and was glad. And then the Jews said to him, say, what? You ain't 50 years old yet. And you've seen Abraham? Yeah, right. So Jesus said, most definitely, I tell you, before Abraham even was, I am. Then it says they took up stones to kill him. And it says Jesus hid himself, went out of the temple, and going through the midst of them, and he so passed by. So now in chapter 9 it picks up. And it starts off with saying, as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. Blind his whole life. I'm sure his life wasn't easy. So, as Jesus is leaving, this argument in a hurry, and in passing, he runs into this guy. Well, he didn't run into him, but there's this guy there. And it says his disciples asked Jesus, they said, hey, why is this guy blind? Is it because his parents sinned? Or maybe that he sinned? Now, before I continue, remember this thought, this question, why? Why is this guy born blind? A lot happens right now in the story, this true account. But we'll go back to that question that they asked. Why? Why is this guy born blind? So Jesus stops now and says, the answer is neither. Not because his parents sinned or him. It's neither of those. It has nothing to do with one's fault or sin. Jesus says, think about it. How about maybe so that the work of God could be revealed? Yeah, maybe that's why. He says, you ever thought about that, you guys? And he goes on, I must do the works of him who sent me while I'm here. So Jesus isn't running anymore. He goes and he stops, talks to the blind man, the ones that the disciples were talking about, that pointed it out to him. And it says he spit on the ground, made some clay, and anointed the blind man's eyes, and said, go wash in that pool over there. And so I'm sure someone had to lead him by the hand. I mean, this guy was blind. So they took him to the pool, and he washed. Meanwhile, Jesus kept going. And the blind guy came back to where Jesus was and where everybody still was there at the synagogue. But now he sees. This guy can see for the first time in his life. Now in the crowd, people started to notice. They said, hey, wait a minute. Isn't that the dude that was blind? Isn't that blind dude over there? And it says even some of his neighbors were there. So they knew him. They all knew him. I mean, they saw him sitting there every day begging. Some said, nah, it kind of looks like him, but I don't think so. And then others said, well, wait a minute. It sure does look like him. Then they said to him, hey, how the heck are you not blind anymore? He said, well, fellas, a man called Jesus. He made some clay, anointed my eyes, and then told me to go wash in the pool over there, the pool of Siloam. And so I went. I washed. I see. Then the religious leader says, where is he? Where is this Jesus? Because they were still looking for him. Jesus kind of snuck on out of there, passed through there. And they're a little upset with him. They're not through with him yet. But he had slipped away. He ran into the blind man, rubbed some clay into his eyes, and kept going. So they want to know where he is. And the dude says, hey, I don't know. Heck, I wouldn't know him if I saw him. I'm blind. Hello. I've never seen him. I heard his voice, felt him rub that clay in my eyes, but I wouldn't know what Jesus looked like if he ran into me. So they grabbed hold of this guy and they dragged him over to the Pharisees. And now the Pharisees, they're not playing anymore. Things are getting serious around there. And so much so, if anyone at all is siding with Jesus or anything, it's look out. So then the Pharisees asked him again, "How do you see?" The guy's like, "Look, I told the others over there. He put clay on my eyes. I washed. I see. Bing, bang, boom. That's it." So now the Pharisees start arguing with each other. He can't be from God because he don't keep the Sabbath. The others are saying, "Yeah, but how can a sinner do such a thing? This guy was blind." I'm sure they were having quite the conversation there. So then they turn towards the blind man again, and they ask him, "What do you say about him, huh? Because after all, it's your eyes he opened. What do you say?" And the guy simply says, "Well, I think he's a prophet." And this pissed them all off. So now they drag his parents in because they don't believe this guy was really ever blind. They said, "Hey, he's your son, who you say was born blind. If that's so, how the hell does he see now? Tell us." And the parents said, "Hey, he's definitely our son, without a doubt. And without a doubt, he was born blind. But how he sees now, or who opened his eyes, we don't have a clue. He's of age. Ask him." So they kind of threw him under the bus here. Their own son. They said, "We can't speak for him. He speaks for himself." See, they didn't want to get thrown out of the synagogue. And the Pharisees have made it clear at this point, anyone who even hinted that Jesus was this Messiah, yeah, they were thrown out. So his parents were intimidated. Plus, they didn't know how he could see. I'm sure they were just shocked as well. But they didn't know. So they said, "Ask him. He's of age." I kind of wonder how their day started. Mom, Dad, blind son sitting together, having some eggs and waffles. Probably not bacon. Dad kisses Mom goodbye and goes to the synagogue to set out some chairs and pamphlets for today's service. Mom kisses son goodbye as he takes his dad's hand, who leads him out onto the main road there right by the synagogue so he can beg, sit there and beg for the day. Dad goes into the synagogue, normal Sabbath day. Then, now this happens. This is a family crisis. And just like that, it happens. So now the parents say, "Ask him. Don't ask us. We don't have a clue. Don't get us into this." So again, the Pharisees call the blind man over to them and they say, "Give God glory. We know that this man is a sinner." And the blind guy, he's no longer blind. His answer is pretty funny, yet very direct. He says, "Hey, I don't know whether or not he's a sinner or anything like that. That's between y'all. That's y'all's business. But I do know one thing. I was blind. Now I see." So now the Pharisees are just screaming, "Tell us, what did he do? How did he do it? How did he open your eyes? Tell us." This guy's now pushing back a little. He's got some chutzpah, some cojones. He said, "Look, I already told you. You didn't want to listen. You didn't want to listen then. Why should I say it again? Unless maybe you also want to become one of his disciples." Bam! Yeah, then they came down on him pretty hard. He's probably thinking to himself, "I probably shouldn't have said that. Probably shouldn't have said that." No. But it's exactly what he should have said. So the Pharisees are fuming now. They're calling him every name in the book and saying, "You're a disciple. You're his disciple, not us. Jesus ain't the Messiah. He isn't our Messiah. Heck, he can't be. We don't know where he's from. He's not the Messiah. We'd know where the Messiah is from." And then the guy kind of chuckles and says, "Wow, wow, wow, amazing. Here's a guy who opened my eyes and you all don't know where he's from? That's amazing. And the dude continues. I think he's inspired here. He says, now we all know that God doesn't hear sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God hears him, right? So, since the world began, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. Never. Yet here I am. So if this man were not from God, he couldn't do nothing. I'd still be blind, chumps. No, he didn't say chumps, but he could have. But he sure made a good point, a valid point, giving them the opportunity to think this through. I mean, he was blind. He now sees. Some things, they better figure this out. These are facts that are right in front of them. Something's up. But they didn't listen. They said, you were completely born in your sin. Your parents were in sin, and that's why you were born blind, you loser. You're nothing but a stinking sinner. How dare you think that you can teach us? And they threw him out. Yeah, they tossed him. 86'd him. This dude went from having a normal day, another good Sabbath, where the Jews going to the synagogue would probably feel a little extra generous on the Sabbath and, giving him a little extra as he begged outside. It went from that to bumping into Jesus, getting his eyesight, never having seen before. What an amazing thing. What an amazing day. From having no purpose in life, no purpose in society, no plan, no hope, no future. Life was a brick wall. Went from that to meeting Jesus. His eyes being open, testifying truth to the Pharisees, the leaders of the whole Jewish faith there, and then being thrown out, ejected. Ejected from basically everything that he was all in one day. He didn't see that coming. No pun intended. He didn't plan it. He didn't expect it. But he heard Jesus' voice. He did what Jesus told him to do. So now he gets thrown out. Wow. He only did what Jesus told him to do. He didn't start this. Heck, he didn't even ask Jesus to heal him. He'd learned to live with this. It was his normal. Then it says Jesus heard that they threw him out of the temple, so Jesus went looking for him. And Jesus is not by any means going to leave this guy alone. No way. He looked for him, and it says he found him. And it says that Jesus said to him, do you believe in the Son of God? The guy answers, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? Jesus said, you have both seen him, and it is he you're talking to right now. And then he said, Lord, I do believe. And it says he worshipped him. This guy, this nobody, in the eyes of the world, was somebody. Yes, he had a rough go of it for years, for his whole life. But God had a plan. And his purpose in life, we now see, was this moment, this event, which seemed totally out of control, not fair, from being blind, restricted in life, to being healed, to being ostracized, to being punished, harassed. But his purpose, I should say God's purpose, was this testimony. Before the testimony was before those that were there that day, all the Pharisees, all the disciples, everybody, they saw this. They saw it happen. That was the purpose. It was for salvation. He got saved that day, and ours. Our salvation too. We too were blind. We too may be in a place of stagnation or abuses or even hopelessness and things, but we've heard his voice. Our eyes were opened. And when the day comes, when our testimony is given, he will give us the chutzpah to trust him and share what he has done for us. We don't need to force it. It'll happen. And then it goes on to say, and then Jesus said that he came into the world for judgment. Not that he will judge us at this time, but when he is on the cross, we are judged right then and there, and we're condemned. Judged and condemned and put to death. He was put to death for us. He paid our debt. He went on to say, all this happened today to this blind man, that those who do not see may see. Everything we experience, everything like this guy did, is for God's glory unto salvation. Not only ours, but someone else's too. Just wait on him. So that original question that the disciples had asked, right, all the way back at the beginning, why? Why was he born blind? Well, we now know why. For God's purposes. His glory. For salvation. He went, he washed, he saw, he worshipped. And the Pharisees witnessed it. Then later on in the next chapter, I think chapter 10, there arose a division amongst them, amongst the Pharisees, some choosing to remain blind, but at the end of chapter 10 it says many believed. So there was fruit. So that's why God's purpose, that's God's purpose in some of the things, situations that we find ourselves in life. He is not willing that any should perish, but all would come to a saving knowledge of Jesus, that their eyes would be open. Some still choose to remain blind, but yeah. So that's a true event, true story I read this morning, and I thought about that guy today. We're going to see him. He's going to see us. It's going to be good. Yep, go back and read it. John chapter 9. Pretty intense. Jesus and the Pharisees getting hot and heavy. And yeah, have a great day.